assistant and am here to help you. I'm ready to assist you with managing your Todoist tasks. What would you like to do? You can add, update, or delete tasks, manage your projects, and much more.
I would like to remove the work meeting that is scheduled today at 10:30 p.m. please. So now let's see. So as you see, we removed it.
I have successfully removed the work meeting task from your Todoist.
Can you please move the task go to gym to next week, please?
Successfully moved the Go to Gym task to next week. Is there anything else you would like me to do?
Can you please add a task for today, which is like a reminder that to sleep early today, please. Start to sleep early. Okay, I've actually done that.
I have successfully added a task to sleep early.
Hello everyone, my name is Hussein and I help businesses create AI agents. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to create an end-to-end AI agent to interact with an API of your choice. In this video, I'm going to be using the Todoist API. So Todoist basically is a tool for managing your calendar and managing your tasks and your time in general. So basically, this is the main tool that we're going to be interacting with, or our AI agent is going to be interacting with. So what does the term AI agent mean to begin with? So in general, it might have like different definitions, but you can think about it as a robotic system or an autonomous system that utilizes artificial intelligence to make decisions and interact with different systems. So in this case, it's basically a large language model AI agent. And in general, like recently, when you hear the term AI agent, it most probably uses a large language model. And it basically harnesses the power of large language models of basically interacting with other tools and systems to enable us like solve tasks. So in this case, we're solving a task of basically not wanting to go to actually interact with the Todoist tool, and instead we can teach this AI agent how to interact with the tool using its API. So basically, I'm going to show you in the video how we can do it. But basically, it's just like we're teaching this system to actually interact with this tool on our behalf by teaching it its API and how to interact with it. So it's basically a typical use case of a large language model. You just wanted to write something, like you wanted to write an email for you, or you wanted to write some code for you, or like to basically like just chat with it. Another use case is that also like large language models are actually good at calling APIs, especially some models that are fine-tuned for this purpose. So basically you can give it the documentation and you can give it a set of tools, and basically you can teach it how, or tell it how to interact with these tools in an accurate way. So this is what we're going to be doing in this video. So let me just start with this like very simple diagram, and then I'm gonna tell you the tools that we're gonna be using, and then I'm gonna dive into the code a little bit, and then I'm gonna show you a live demo for that. So first of all, the user is gonna say the request, and then two things will happen. So either the AI agent or the AI assistant, our assistant in this case, knows the answer to this, and in this case, the user request will gonna go to the large language model, and then the user gonna get back a response. Like a simple example of that is the user says hi, and then the large language model responds, "Hi, how are you today?" or something like that. On the other hand, if the large language model doesn't know the answer, or if the assistant or the agent doesn't know the answer, it's gonna go to the knowledge base. So it's gonna retrieve some information from the knowledge base. In this case, it might be some information of how to use the Todoist API, or it can be like just an action or request for an action, and therefore the Todoist tool that uses also large language model will interact directly with the Todoist API, and the language model itself it interacts with the Todoist API and the Todoist tool. Basically it all like depends on large language models and on embedding models, like the retrieval tool also uses basically the leverages the embedding models to find similarities of documents. So let's just get into the code and the setup. So basically, we have at the beginning, I have set up so obviously we need the language model, and for that purpose, I have created a file or a component that I called the LLM factory, and the LLM factory, or the large language model factory, basically enable us to connect to multiple large language models. For example, OpenAI language models, Grok, which is basically an interface for hosting large language models using language processing units, LPUs, which enables like very fast basically inference time. Also, we have Anthropic, we have Together, so we have a lot of options, just like to not constrain our agent with just like a single choice of large language models. And this is always a good choice because people have different, or like businesses have different preferences regarding the utilization of large language models. Some of them have like a much higher volume and they would prefer like an open source model. And some of them also would prefer like to, or some other businesses like don't have a problem paying for the API and it scales well for them. So we go for the choice that makes sense the most. So this is basically the setup for the large language models part. And now I'm going to show you the tool part. And what does the tool mean? So in this case, basically a tool is actually something that our large language model or AI agent has access to. So for example, let me give you an example. If you ask ChatGPT now, or any large language model, what is like 3 times, like just like you give it a mathematical operation, or let's say like an integral, give it an integral. So in the what happens actually in the inference of this large language model, this large language model is gonna lie on the data distribution to answer this question. So for example, if it's like some physics or like complicated math problem that a not very large language model or didn't see data, if the language model didn't see a lot of data regarding that, it will not be able to answer this question. And therefore, it's going to be better to give it a tool, for example, like a calculator, and then rely on the actual mathematics from the calculator rather than depending on the answer from the language model directly. So instead of getting the answer directly from the language model, we're going to ask the language model first to go through the tools. So instead of, for example, asking the large language models, just like giving it a prompt of the available operations in the Todoist API, instead we're gonna give it a tool that is actually the API calls themselves, and then ask the language model not to directly like give us the answer, but rather just like give us the input to the API calls. So this is what we're gonna be doing. So this is the Todoist tool, which is like the main tool. So it's basically a subclass of the base tool class from LangChain. So we can do like later some videos about LangChain, which is like I use it as a large part of my AI agent setup in Python. So basically this Todoist tool that we have is actually what you need to do in LangChain. You need first to give the tool a name. In this case, it's Todoist tool, description, flexible tool for interacting with a Todoist API. So it's gonna basically just like the goal of this tool is to give the input parameters to the API call, and that basically where we get the parameters, we get it from the documentation of the API. So what's gonna happen when this tool is run? First, we're gonna give it the operations, basically what operation to do. For example, in Todoist, what we can do, we can like add a task to our calendar or to our schedule, and then we can like remove a task, update a task, set the priority of a task, and so on. Like you can do a lot of stuff. Here's actually I wrote some of the operation that you can do. So for example, you can get a task. So the description of this task that you retrieve a specific task by its ID. So every task in Todoist has an ID, and the parameters. So the parameters are basically in this case the task ID, So you give basically the ID of the task, and it will return you the task details. So for example, let me show you. I think I can show you just the API, Todoist API. Here is the. So here's basically the API reference. So get task or task. Yeah, adding a new task, for example. Yeah. So to add a task, for example, you need to give the content of the task or the name of the task and the project ID. So the project ID that the task belongs to, like to which the task belong to, like to which project, basically. Yeah, so this is get task. Now get tasks, for example, is another operation that the agent has access to, and get tasks, basically it's like get not only one task but like multiple tasks, for example, based on the project, based on some project, based on some filter, like tasks that are due tomorrow, for example, or tasks that are due next week, or tasks that are like overdue, or tasks that are, for example, of certain priority. So for example, this priority is like high priority, something like that. So these are the operations basically that the agent has access to. So we give this information. So this information basically is stored in the knowledge base. So the agent basically has access to this information through the retriever, the retrieval tool. And I'm gonna go into the retrieval tool in a minute, but like just to give you an insight of where the agent actually can get this information of the operation, because the agent's actually going to run the tool directly. So what happens is during runtime is that the agent will first classify the tool that it's going to be run. And basically, like many large language models have been fine-tuned to do so, like to basically classify based on the input that the user gave. It actually like predicts which tool or which parameters to give to the corresponding tool. So in our case, the tool is Todoist API tool, and the parameters are the operation, which can be like get a task or update a task or add a new task. The parameters, which are basically the parameters of the corresponding task. Yeah. So this basically this method will take these operations, and it will simply just like it will call the corresponding function, like it will call the API. So basically here you can see that I'm using the Todoist API Python SDK, and basically sorry, I'm using like I'm using the Todoist API for Python, and basically I'm using it in my tool. So again, just to summarize, you give the input. I want, for example, I want to add a new task, and you give also the parameters in your prompt, or if you don't provide it the parameters, the large language model either is gonna assume the parameters or it's gonna ask you for the parameters depending on your prompt that you give to the large language model. So after that, it's gonna predict, as we said, the operation, which is just a string, and its parameters. Yeah. So after that, so here's basically I have also another different functions, like the tool information and tool operations, basically just to create a description of the tasks, because these descriptions are going to be used in the prompt itself for the language model. So yeah, just to give you also, because we're talking about the prompt, I'm going to show you the prompt. So for example, this is an example sample system prompt. So you are an assistant that has access to the following tools, and the render tools. Basically, these renders come from the description that you give to the tool, which is basically like the name of the tool, the description of the tool, and it's basically going to be given to it at runtime. So here is an example of at runtime how the prompt will look like. You are an assistant that has access to the following tools: Todoist tool, which is which we got it from the name here, and the description, which we got it from the description. Yeah, and also you can give some other information, like for example tool descriptions that I created it also basically from the tool information, which again I got it from the data of the API documentation, which is here, the data part. Yeah, so now we finished one of the tools that we're gonna give to the agent. So let me just show you again. So I will give the agent 4 tools. Todoist tool that we just discussed, like just right now, which is basically a tool that's gonna take the name of the operation from the API, and then the parameters to that operation that's gonna be using. And then we have also the retrieval tool, which is here, which I'm gonna talk about next. And then we have some other tools that are like secondary tools that I'm gonna explain as well. So the retrieval tool, basically what it does. So just to note, I cannot just give all this data about all the API calls documentation. So for example, I cannot just like take all this documentation and give it to the agent immediately as a prompt. This is very inefficient because like we waste a lot of tokens by giving this in the system prompt, for example. And also like the agent in most cases, like it doesn't require all of that. And I also noticed, because for example, like the agent will only need for, if you want to add a new task, then probably it doesn't care about adding new project. It only cares about adding a new task. And I also noticed an improvement in the performance, like in the accuracy of the responses, when I actually removed like all the documentation of the API from the prompt itself, and I put it instead in a retrieval tool. So I put it in a knowledge base like here, and then I retrieve it using the retrieval tool. So the retrieval tool is basically an embedding model. Yeah, so let me show it to you here. So basically the retrieval tool, what it takes a So what is a retrieval tool? A retrieval tool is based on a database that we create, and which is basically a vector database, which means that this database actually stores like sentences or sequences of tokens and their embeddings. So in this case, the database consists of 2 parts. First part is the operations, like get tasks, add task, update a task, close task, reopen task, delete task, and so on. So it has all the operations that Todoist actually can do, like that you can do as a human with Todoist, but now the agent will do it on behalf of you. Also, we have another database, which is like the filters database. So the filters are basically things that the agent can use in order to filter tasks or projects. So for example, like you can filter by the due date, for example, that are like due today, tasks that are due today, tasks that has certain keywords. You can also do some logical operations, and you can like filter by date, something like that, filter by priority. You can do a bunch of stuff. So this also is going to be part of our database. So every line in our database consists of the content of the document itself and its embedding. So the embedding is for the embedding, I'm using the text embedding large model from OpenAI. So basically I'm using the OpenAI API to create the embeddings, and then I'm storing the embeddings in a face vector store or an index, you can call it. Whenever you ask a question and whenever the retrieval tool is invoked, then we're gonna search for documents that are the most relevant to the user query. And the way we do that basically by doing similarity search. And this similarity search, it's like based on how semantically the information in the document, the information that the user actually is requesting. So this is a second tool that I'm using. There are 2 other tools, which is get project ID by name and get task ID by name. So by the documentation, from the documentation, I noticed that everything, like to do anything with tasks, like to close a task or to add a task or to like to remove a task or to update a task, you need actually to have the task ID. However, like imagine the use case scenario. You're not gonna tell the agent, oh please close task ID, task with ID 29951043339. Of course, you're not gonna be doing that. Wait, let me disconnect from my AirPods. So yeah, so you don't want to do that. You don't want to say the ID to the agent. Instead, you want to say the name of the task. Therefore, we need to have a mechanism to get the task ID by name. So here I created another large language model chain, which is basically like a chain is actually a set. I'm not gonna explain the term chain in details, but you can just think about it as another prompt to another AI agent, or like a sub AI agent, which is part of the system that is relevant, that is like responsible only for getting the task ID by the name. So the idea is to get the task ID by the name, we're going first to take the list of tasks that we have, all the tasks, and then we're going to filter them by similarity to the name. So for example, you can see the prompt here. Here is a set of task names. Please select the most relevant task name to the task name. So here are all the tasks that we have in our schedule, for example. So let's say, like you say, let's say go to gym. So you're gonna pass all of these. Probably the most relevant task to your prompt will be this task. So it's gonna take this task, and then it's a way to search for the task by name. Same applies for the project. So here you can get the task ID by project, or the project ID by name, or the task ID by name. And here are all the tools that we need. So now we have actually created the set of tools. Now we are ready to call the tools. So, and to interact with the agent. So basically, here I'm going to show you how I interact with the agent. So I have another class that I didn't explain, which is the agent manager. So the agent manager is basically just a class that actually just combines all this stuff together. So it basically creates a LangChain agent. It gives the prompt, which I just showed in minutes ago, and then it gives this agent the so let me go to it. Gives this agent the access to the large language models based on the one we specified. It gives all this setup, like all these settings. It combines it in a single class, which is basically is going to be like the agent executor. So the agent executor is what we care about the most. Is what we're gonna actually pass the user input to, and it contains all the stuff that we just explained. So it traps them all together. I can also make another video about that, like how exactly this works, in a different video. So now let's continue. So after that, we need a way to interact with the agent. So now we have the agent setup, like we have the pipelines set up, user request, querying the database. Then after querying the database, passing this knowledge to the Todoist tool. Then from the Todoist tool, we interact with the API. Then the large language model will actually give the response back to the user, and it can make changes to the Todoist tool, basically. So obviously you can just make it work just without voice, like by interacting it with text, and it works this way also. However, I also created like a voice-based agent, so you can actually by voice interact with it, and you can tell it whatever you want it to do with Todoist. And just one thing to note here. So first you say something to the agent. Whenever you say something to the AI agent, the first thing is that your voice request is going to be interpreted using a transcription, like a transcription service. In this case, I'm using OpenAI speech to text service, basically Whisper. I'm using Whisper. You can use it like you can have an offline version of Whisper. There are a lot of open source models that you can download and use, and even they work in on your laptops, mobile devices even, and also like I've seen it work in a Raspberry Pi. So it's it can be like easy to run inference locally for Whisper. And however, something I struggled with a little bit is how to actually like do the voice management, because for example sometimes you're gonna start speaking and then you're gonna stop speaking, and once you stop speaking we want the AI agent to know that you finished your request. So just to detect that you finished your request, we need to do that. Like we need to tell the agent when you actually finished your request without just like pressing something, without like just manually doing that. So I did that by using voice activity detection library in Python, which is WebRTC VAD, which is like the voice activity detection library. So here, for example, you can change the aggressiveness mode. So the aggressiveness mode basically tells you how fast the speaker is going to speak. So some speakers like speak really slow and we don't want to cut them off when they're speaking. However, also we have like very fast speakers, and these speakers like we can like predict that they finish speaking because usually they speak fast, so they just like stop. Whenever they pause, it means that they finished speaking. So for example, and also you can have like multiple other settings like the sample rate and the frame duration, the silence threshold, like how many frames you need to have silence in to detect that this is like at the end of the request. And after that you have I use also the sound device library to stream these audio frames from the microphone, and then to detect whether the speech like finished or not. Whenever the speech finishes, I do the transcribe. So I concatenate first all the audio frames that I collected during the speaking phase, and then I pass them into a transcribe audio function, which uses the Whisper for speech to text. Also for text to speech, also I use OpenAI text to speech service to play back the sound for you. And basically that's all the components I think I covered. So if you want the code, like you can request the code for me. I maybe share it later. You can write down if you in the comments if you'd like to have the code, and I will be sharing it with you. Now let's jump into the demo. So in this small demo, I'm gonna just try to basically like remove or add task, manipulate my calendar, just like without doing it myself, and just by asking this AI assistant to do it for me. So here we run it like with sudo rights because we need to give it access to the microphone. And here wait for a little bit, and here we go. So first, hello, how are you? I wanted to help me like manage my Todoist tasks. So now it's running. It captured.
Hello, I'm an AI assistant, and I'm here to help you. I'm ready to assist you with managing your Todoist tasks. What would you like to do? You can add, update, or delete tasks, manage your projects, and much more.
I'd like to remove the work meeting that is scheduled today at 10:30 p.m., please. So now let's see. So as you see, it removed it.
I have successfully removed the work meeting task from your Todoist. Is there anything else you would like me to do?
So let's just like take a look what happened here. So first, I said that remove the task work meeting. So to begin with, it needs, as we said, it needs to get the task ID, because like to manipulate the task, do anything with the task, we need to get the task ID. So it actually got the task ID. It ran the function or the tool get task ID by name, and it actually retrieved the task ID, which is in this case this number. Then after that, it called the operation delete task and gave it the parameter task ID that we just retrieved. And after that, like it returned it like the API called return true, which means that it was successful, and then it returned to us the like the output. And if we want to take a closer look, we can actually see in Langsmith. So Langsmith basically is a way to visualize your prompts from LangChain. And basically here you can see, for example, I said I'd like to remove the work meeting that is scheduled today at 9:30 p.m. please. So we can see here like step by step what's happening in the thought process of the agent. So first of all, it first like takes the input and it loads the chat history, because sometimes like we ask follow-up questions, so we want the agent to actually memorize what has been going on in the chat. So it's like a very crucial part that we actually pass the memory or the history of the chat. So here we can see that the chat history, like the first question I asked, hello, how are you? It's like it's there saved, and the answer also is saved. And also here the output is basically like all the information and details that are like needed or passed to the agent. So for example, here we have like the get task ID by name function, and like which tools to call. So after that we see that it actually so here's just like an intermediate step. So here like we see that these are intermediate steps. I can also make another detailed video about how Langsmith works and how about LangChain agents work. And here we see that like this, for example, this step didn't take any tokens, while other steps also this one didn't take any tokens. So basically so we see here that it started. So this is the prompt template. So any agent that has a large language model need actually a prompt template for it. So in this case, the prompt template has the actual prompt with the placeholders that we specified at the beginning, and actually here it's just like being prepared to be passed to the actual large language model. So here we see the whole prompt that has been passed, and also like other messages as well. So basically so this is the format that actually OpenAI requires the prompts to be. So it's like in the form of messages, and like this is a system message, for example, as you can see here, it's a system message, then it's like a human message that I said, and then it's AI message. So it's basically like this, the formatting that's needed to be passed to OpenAI language models, and all of that is handled for you whenever you like by LangChain agents, whenever you actually specify the language model that you'll be using. So in this case, you see here I'm using GPT-4, and in this case it used 1,856 tokens, and it costs this much. So it's basically like this dashboard is actually useful to see how much you're spending and how much time it took to answer the queries. So in this case, you see here the functions and tools that are that were passed to the model. So we see here like Todoist tool. We have the Todoist tool that I explained at the beginning of the video. We have the get project ID by name, get task ID by name, filtered data retrieval, and we have here the get task by name, which is the one that was called. So this task has been called, or this tool has been called to get the task ID. The task ID that we ask the agent to take. So it decided to call this tool, and after it called it, it actually got the task name, which is the work meeting. So after it got that it's work meeting, let's go to the next tool, which is basically to get the task. Basically, okay, so here it finished, this task finished to get the name, the ID of the task. The next task is to actually so one second. So here is work meeting, here are the tasks, here is a set of names. So yeah, so this one was to basically get the task ID. It's still here, so it's like it basically gives you very details of what's happening here. Yeah, and after that it returns you the name. So here was the output of the first tool. So now let's go to the second tool. So the second tool is actually that was the Todoist tool, which actually which is basically to delete the task with this ID. So now we're deleting this task with this ID, and then after that, at the end, like the last step is to just like return the output to the user. So the output is actually the tool could return true, which means that we can actually successfully it has been deleted successfully. So now let's see what. So this is just basically everything what happened. So now let's try to ask about some other task. Can you please move the task go to gym to next week, please? So now let's see if it's gonna be able to make it. So it got the task ID. And
I have successfully moved the Go to Gym task to next week. Is there anything else you would like me to do?
Okay, as we see here, it actually moved the Go to Gym task to next week, which is expected, which is what we want. Okay, now I see in my calendar there is like two tasks. There is a task, two like duplicate task. One that is like due today, which is 5 minutes meditation, and there is another one also 5 minutes meditation session tomorrow. So can you please remove the one that is tomorrow, please, and keep the one that's today? Okay, this was difficult. This was a difficult request. I basically asked it to just like remove one of these because I see that these are duplicates, and it actually have removed one of them. That's really important.
I have successfully removed the 5 minutes meditation session task that was scheduled for tomorrow from your Todoist. The one scheduled for today remains. Is there anything else you would like me to do?
Oh, okay. I see that it removed the it removed the one for tomorrow instead of the one for today. But yeah, like it removed one of them, one of the duplicates. So which is good. So I think that's all. Let's try to add a task. Like, let's just try to add a task. Can you please add a task for today, which is like a reminder that to sleep early today, please. So now I just asked to set me a reminder to sleep early. Okay, actually done that.
I have successfully added a task to sleep early for today.
So that was all. So I hope you enjoyed this video, you find it useful. So this is basically I like AI agent, like this is just the glimpse of what AI agents can do. So basically they can automate all your tasks. Like this is just like a single example of one API that it can interact with. Like just imagine what other things that it can do for you. So it can basically do a lot of useful stuff. So this was one example, like for a personal assistant case study. I hope you enjoyed it, you liked the video. Maybe I can share the code as I said, and I can maybe make a tutorial of the details, because it's like it will take like long hours to explain every single detail of what's happening. So maybe in the next videos I can explain just like upon your request. So just feel free to request anything that you'd like to know more about, and I'd be more than happy to explain it and cover it later. So thank you so much for watching. See you next time.